All right, there we are. Okay, we're live.
Welcome everyone to another evening of interesting conversation with some interesting coaches. We've got a few minutes before we start. We start at 7:30, so if you want to drink a water or whatever refreshment you desire, then go grab that. If you want some food to settle in for the evening and enjoy the entertainment, then do that. But we'll get away on time at 7:30, so a couple of minutes before we start.
Yeah.
How's the academy, Cripsy? Are you still doing webinars for them?
Yeah, they're doing bits and bobs. Yeah, still keeping in touch, giving the kids some challenges to do and things. It's trying to do what we can.
Is Imran starting back training anytime soon?
I haven't heard anything.
I know for a few clubs they're just waiting for the Jimentas to get back to them.
Yeah.
So who makes that decision? Rugby Netherlands, or would it be the government?
NRC, NSF, government.
Okay.
Yeah. So all academies, regional training academies and national training academies across the country are not up and running yet. It's only sport up to 18, but top sport, so the high regional sports is not up and running yet. So,
and then the local councils have to open the grounds as well.
Okay.
You got to ask permission within your municipality or your council. Can you get back to training? Can you get back on the pitch? We can say it's okay, but the council can say no.
Okay.
Yeah, because they are in the fields, so they have to approve your plan.
Yeah.
Training. All right, 7:30. Let's get going. Tonight we're talking about defense. We've got a bit to get through. As always with defense, there's always a lot of stuff to consider, and we've got three good coaches here that are specialists in defense. We'll start with Hein Craig. Technical director from the union. He's been on a few. I'm sure you've heard of him before. Then move on to Matthew Cripps. Cripps, do you want to say a little bit about yourself or anything interesting? Any fun facts?
No.
Yeah, Cripps, he's been on a few, and he's also on one next week. So he's a busy man on these webinars. He's probably the most used coach so far. So big ups to Cripsy. And then we've got a special guest, Andre. If you want to introduce yourself, say a bit about yourself. We're grateful to have you here this evening.
Yeah, how's it, guys? I'm a South African like Hein, and I come from Cheetah country in South Africa, and we like running the ball. But I've been around the world in Japan and also now in Russia coaching at a club here. It's good to be with you guys.
I just got to mention Cripsy had a Springboks shirt on this morning.
Good.
We got to bring that.
Yeah, let's walk. Yeah.
All right. Where do we start? In systems. I'll start the conversation, and for me, I think before we start to talk about defense and systems, we need to understand what a system is. And for me, there's a lot of working parts working together to achieve something, which if you take one of the parts out, then the whole thing falls apart, if that makes sense. Anybody want to chip in there?
Yeah, I think it's a coordinated way of putting pressure onto the attack. So,
yep, it's where we go. So, Cripsy, before we start, we need to understand what do we want to achieve. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's important that, I try to make it as simple as we possibly can. So we're looking at the threat ID from as a starting point, and that comes from whether it's from set piece, scrum, and line out. So then can we potentially, on the left side of the field with a scrum, or on the right side of the field with a scrum, or centre field, can we get a little bit of a nudge on the right shoulder, left shoulder, so we can open up our 7? What's our 9 doing in their responsibilities? From a line out perspective, how many numbers they got? What are they doing generally from our research in their games? So we have a plan on how we're going to try and nullify that and get the ball back as quickly as we can. So that comes under threat identification. We're trying to obviously cut down the options. That's whether that's line speed or drift defense or a little umbrella. And then get the ball back comes under what we're doing in and around the breakdown. There's a lot of detail that can go into each of those areas, but just to try and keep it as simple as possible. When you're trying to present things, this is the way I like to do it. Yeah.
And Andre, you've got something a little bit different, similar but a little bit different.
Yeah, so I like it's 100% what Cribsy said, and then I like to get into position really quickly. So that's a very important part. So wherever the first tackle is, to get into position quickly after that, so we can set and then put the pressure onto the attack.
As a coach, when you're looking at your defense principles, so obviously, Andre, you have an extra one. Cripsy, you work on the 3. Do you get these principles based on your philosophy of defense, or does it come from your technical knowledge, or how do you come up with the defense principles? Like, how did you get to these 3, Cripsy? Is it do you go back to your philosophy and then that's what you base it on, or is it based on technical things or what you've researched, or how did you get to this point?
Yeah, it came down to a lot of research and the experience along the way, speaking to various coaches and gaining information from the Crusaders and from the Ospreys, so on and so forth, like that, and then trying to fit it in the way we want to try and play. Yeah, so to suit us in our competition rather than just trying to copy and paste.
Yeah.
I think that's really important as well. I think something also is really important is that we can't compare international rugby to kids rugby. So there's a lot of things you can take from what we're talking about, and then there's a lot of things that you don't need.
I think that's Cripsy. You hit the nail on the head. I think you as a coach need to sit down at the level where you are and say, all right, so what do I want to achieve with my defense? What are the 3 things, like you did here? What are the 3 things that is important for me at the level where I am with my team, and then put those on paper, and that then is the starting point for you to start building your defense. A lot of people just copy and paste what other people do, and then they come unstuck because they don't understand what they're doing.
Yeah, if I can just add there, your player profile is very important. So when I coached in Japan, we had a really small players. So for me to go with the South African mentality of I want to tackle on the ball, it wasn't going to work. Yeah. So we had to change my philosophy of where to tackle. So we wanted to set really quickly and then get speed to chop tackle, and then they wouldn't get over the gain line because we had smaller players. So the player profile is really important to your philosophy. So from year to year, that could change if your players change, and that's also quite important.
Which leads us nicely into a little bit of a model on the defense cycle on different things we need to look at. We're going to touch a little bit on the system tonight, but it's we need to understand that, Cripsy, and you started with this, is that the game starts with a set piece of a sort, either a kickoff, a scrum, or a line out, or it starts with something of that when it stopped. And every time we have that, we have we have a set picture in front of us that we can work from. Obviously, from there, game goes and we release. Then there's a collision which creates a ruck, and in that collision, there's different things that we can look at. What is the tackle technique? Do we dominate the collision? Do we fight? Is the ball in the air? Is the ball on the ground? What happens in the breakdown? And then spacing and alignment from that ruck that created. And then obviously we need to get off the line again, and this is where we're going to have a little bit of look at clips again later on, as well as, are we numbers up? Are we numbers down? Do we get off the line? Do we stay off the line? What do we do? And it's a little bit of, if you understand the little concepts around this, and you can start coloring in these little blocks with detail in your trainings, then it's a good place to start off with.
Agreed.
So this was just this is now, if we go back to here and we look at system top, this is then just a little bit of a breakdown of what happens in a system.
Yeah. So this is just, again, sort of a simplified version of what you just presented there.
Yeah.
So you go from first phase. So we have we deal with the picture that's presented to us initially from the setup of scrum lineout, so on and so forth. Yeah, and then the game plan defense is a big key these days, is sort of how many phases we go before we split the centres, how many phases we go before we drop the 10 into a fullback position and bring the wings up. So we can tweak that game to game as we go. If a team's more likely to kick early in the phase count and field position as well. Yeah. And then your general phase play defense, once we try to split our back row and our centres. Yeah. And then it's pretty simple from then on in if you scramble. So after a line break.
Yeah.
So
what are you sort of looking for in terms of why would you split your centres and your maybe your loose forwards? Why do a lot of teams want, after 3 phases, the heavies around the breakdown? So you got to work your big boys in close. Why do you want that?
Yeah, a lot of it's to do with dealing with the speed. So some of the big boys, we want to try and get them in and around for those sort of bigger collisions, pick and goes, short runners, trying to hit that first pod. And then if I got the centres on the outside, then next to the wing, then they've got that good understanding because they're next to those for most of the time in the game anyway from set piece. So you've got speed and a good connection initially from that. And then if we can get a back row on the inside of them, then we can start looking at getting in and have a good jackal if we get out to the 15 meters anyway, so to speak.
But that then again is specific to a team, because when we chat later about map defense, I'm going to show 3 clips and I'll give a little bit of a history of the team that we had and why we did what we did. But it's a good question, Zane, on why do you split it, and some coaches would prefer not to. Andre, which way do you go?
Yeah, I like after the first tackle area from a set piece, you'll generally have either your 10 and your 12 or your 12 and your 13 in that tackle. Yeah. And then they split to become the second last defender on each side. So then you should have your 2 centers and your winger on the edges.
Yeah.
And they communicate, they organize, and they've got more speed than if you say have your prop out there. Because one of the things with the outside backs, they tend to use their feet. And so if you have a prop out on the wider channels and they sort of step, then that prop's got no chance of cutting down the space because he's confronted with a fast backline player. So that's just the reasons. It's communication, organization, and then also speed, and they're better defenders. And exactly the rest was 100% what Cripsy said.
Yeah. So next thing is if you know what you want to achieve with your defense, then the next question is, how do you measure your defense? How do you know you were successful except for the points being on the board? And I put a list of stuff down here. You can measure what happens in the tackle. You can measure what happens in the defensive breakdown, and you can measure if there's systems if there's errors in the system. But tackle completion is not always everything. Andre, as you've told us this morning, you want to just quickly share that story?
Yeah, so in 2014, the Melbourne Rebels was the number one team in Super Rugby in terms of tackle completion rate. They had 89% tackle completion rate. And you guys can go and have a look at any website on that. But they were the last team in Super Rugby. So tackle completion doesn't necessarily say that your defense is good. So something that I like to look at is gain line success. So if we can get up off the line and stop our opposition behind the gain line, that's a better indicator whether my defense would have been good. Because if you give the New Zealand teams momentum, they're going to run you to pieces. And that's why South Africa is now, of late in the last year, been really started getting more success is by putting a lot of pressure with good line speed onto that attack. So once again, it's not a bad thing. It's good to see whether your boys can tackle, but I'd rather go for gain line success as a measurement.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you look at Saracens, who's one of the best defenses in the world, I think Farrell has probably the most missed tackles out of anyone in the Premiership when he plays.
For England as well.
Down to the line speed that he puts on. And he's meant to do that, so it's part of the process. So, yeah, your tackle completion can't really be too justified in that situation, that's for sure. Yeah.
But it's once again, it's the sacrifice. So if your philosophy is let's get off the line and put pressure on decision making, you must be able to sacrifice a little bit of tackle completion. Where if tackle completion once again is then important for you in the league that you play or wherever you are, then the line speed is less. So it's a give and take between the two. That it's a fine balance you got to walk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I talk quite a lot with our boys about getting that line speed up. It's not quite as fast as we like it, but we still managed 87% this year, so it's pretty good.
It's good. It's good. And
do you guys, as coaches, also reward the team in different ways for turnovers in terms of your defense? So not just a jackal, but also if line speed was the cause of a knock-on or of a potential intercept, or you shut down an attack or what have you, or a positive tackle leads to a good situation where then you are able to get a turnover, do you reward your teams in different ways for those ones? Because on the turnover count, it's only going to be, the jackler that gets the credit for that, or someone intercepts, they get a credit. But actually, a lot of the time, it's down to what happens the phase before.
Yeah.
That actually sets it up for that, or it could be the man working in a particular way. Like, how do you guys reward individuals other than the statistics?
Yeah, I think we spoke about that, Zane, earlier this year about trying to bring that in. We didn't bring it in for the first 4 games. But, even down to a line-out steal, that's still a turnover.
Yep.
Even to a contestable kick that they fail to take, that's still a turnover. They all still count, and we're still trying to find ways. But it's definitely something that we'd like to bring in, that's for sure, yeah.
If I can come in there, we've got a nice thing where we've got 7 different awards in each game. So, for example, we'll give the best hits, the best tackle of the game, and then also the best turnover of the game. And so it's in the change room, and we write down the player's name after each game, and they get a little reward, like a little. We've got a sweatband with the club badge embroidered. So the guys try and collect the sweatbands. The more sweatbands they've got at the end of the season, the better. So it's just a little thing, but and then they train with a sweatband during the week, which they received that award. But interesting on another point, South Africa. That's why South Africa's defense is high risk.
Yeah.
But they've got stats that prove that the handling errors have gone up against South Africa. Even New Zealand are making errors. Passing is not accurate anymore. They make a lot of errors because of the high line speed. So that's definitely something to look at.
Yeah.
I've just got a question before we move on to the next slide. And that's Christian's asking, who do you want to push up in a drift defense? And conversely, who do you want to push up in an umbrella defense? Who's leading the line up, I guess, and who's going to be the one that's up first? Or if there's multiple players, would you have multiple players pushing up?
Answered nicely in the slides that we've got a little bit later.
Yeah.
So can we?
But I can also.
I think we're gonna sort of touch on that a little bit later on.
Okay.
Okay.
Good question.
It's a great question. We just gave ourselves some time to think about it.
No, it's on the slide.
This is just a little bit of a picture of what a general shape should look like or could look like. You two gentlemen, for instance, prefer this center then to be here next to the wing, that center next to the wing, and then 7 and 6 or 8 next to them there, and the rest spread amongst. It is a nice discussion point. Who do you want where and how? It's a lot of teams still play with wings on strings with the fullback. You guys want to elaborate a little bit? And I had the question in the week as well. Why do we want 10 and 15 at the back as it is here?
Well, for me, they generally a better footballer. For example, the kicking game needs to be there anyway.
Yeah.
So the decision making around what happens next. Sometimes you get into a situation where a wing is just lightning quick, but he's one-dimensional.
Yeah.
If you get a good kick and chase against him, then he can't pass off his left hand, for example. So you corner him and he can't kick the ball properly. So he's in the spot of ball. Generally, with the 10 and 15, the decision making around that area is pretty good. They got a kicking game, which is a massive bonus. But then also the wings, they found that they save sort of empty meters in their legs.
Yeah.
So when they wings on strings and they move in from side to side the whole time, that's just taken away from their explosivity later in the game.
Yeah.
So it's kind of saving them a little bit as well and makes their life a little bit easier. For when they do get the ball, they can be a bit more effective. So around them lines for me.
I also like this because it gives us a little bit of uniformity in a kick chase as well, because when you put a kick chase together, and if I put a system together, my wings are always at the front because they're generally the quickest guys in the team. And why would you want to waste that space? So it gives them a little bit of uniformity in roles and responsibilities on the pitch, so that they're not confused. Should I stay? Should I go? And generally 10 and 15 are the two guys that are kicking, and in the general kick system, 10, the guy that kicks stays. So, he's not chasing with the line. So it just gives a little bit of more uniformity in what we want to achieve at the end of the day.
Yeah, unless you're damn bigger. Yeah, you go cut.
Yeah, he gets it back by himself as well. You had to bring in a Welshman, didn't you?
Yeah. And the last thing is that the wings can sit higher, so they can pressure the opposition attack more with line speed. When they're half sort of back, then they're always sort of late.
Yeah.
Whereas now they're up, they give you more width in defense, and then you can have more line speed. If you've got more width, you can have more line speed.
Exactly. That connection is there, and they can pick off the odd intercept along the way as well.
Yeah. It's a bit of a change, am I right, from the old school picture where this wing would sort of sit here, around about here, there would be a fullback here, and then when he goes there to fill that gap, he comes around. It's a little bit of a different picture, and a lot of coaches, I don't think, are utilising this enough to get more players up. And there's probably less space available if you're a decent kick.
And the last thing, just on that slide, Hein, is now you've got both sides of the field has a last tackler. So if they do have an overlap, the 15 or the 10 can take that last man, if it makes sense, on both sides. So where if you had wings on strings, your 15 is working really hard, as Crispy said.
Yeah.
So that's also a good thing. Sorry.
No, that's good.
If they also, if they go down the lines of the 50-22, then then you've got a kicking option at the back to help clear the lines as well. So
just an observation, where would you and this, I know there's a million answers to this. This is why I'm asking this: is where would you want your last defender to be, sort of on the pitch, as a rough estimate?
Width-wise, I mean.
Width-wise, yeah. Where would you, if he gets into a certain area, we're in trouble. I know so people got different landmarks on the pitch. Mine, for instance, is the 15. As soon as my last defender is if I don't have somebody on the 15 in that area, then I'm in trouble. You guys?
Yeah, I think around about the same for me. Yeah, if you're giving away a bit more than 15 meters on the outside, then you're in a spot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, mini units. This is where we start building a defense. Am I right?
100%.
Yeah.
So roles and responsibilities. The ball is coming from the inside here. Andre, just walk us through what is the roles and responsibilities for you for these three players that are working in threes. We're going to play a little bit of a video after this, just because it might change. The three of us each might have a different idea of what's happening here.
So if the ball is coming from, it will be our left, and the first player receives it, he will pass it to the guy in the middle.
Yeah.
So once the ball is past the catch-up defender, he has to catch up hard to assist the tackler. So that if the ball carrier steps inside, then the catch-up defender can make a hit from the inside. And what I like for the inside player is to go for the leg chop, and then the tackler can defend on the ball. If this player with the ball steps on the outside, then the tackler will go on the legs, and the adjusting defender can come in to have a look at the double hit or the offload, because the adjuster will always be offload.
Yeah.
But this little mini unit is the core of any defense. So a lot of people tell you, but tackling is a one-man thing and defense is a team thing. So I say tackling is this mini unit strengthens the tackler, because if the catch-up player communicates, I've got you inside, then the tackler knows that at least he's strong from the inside because the catch-up is coming.
Yeah.
And the same with the adjusting defender. As soon as the ball carrier goes into the contact zone, the adjusting defender can come closer to look for the offload or the intercept.
It breeds confidence. Am I right, Brooksy? This is just if every single player knows exactly what he's doing in these three players, it just gives us a bit more confidence in what to do. A lot of coaches coach, this is the guy that goes for the steal. I'm in the middle of changing beliefs where if it's a good tackle, I want to sort of go for the steal here, the jackal. I'm in two minds at the moment. I haven't made up my mind yet. But the three roles here is the most important.
Yeah.
Once again, from my side, it depends what level you're playing, because if you're playing Super Rugby, you can't have the outside adjusting defender come into jackal, because then they'll play around you in no time.
Yeah,
so
he gives with.
Super Rugby, maybe national team level, the inside player must be the ball stealer, and the adjusting defender will communicate who's folding to get width on the defense.
Yeah. So we got a little video that we want to show that shows this, but once again, I told you this is going to happen. Guys, I'm going to show it on YouTube. Let me get this one. It's the defense in threes. This one. So, can you guys see it?
Not yet.
I'm going to play it on YouTube on my laptop, so I can't play it on the presentation.
I've got it on my iPad. Yeah.
You got it? You got it, Andre?
Yep.
Oh no, sorry, I don't. Must I go onto YouTube and?
Yeah, it's your video. Defense in threes, double hits.
Okay, I've got that. That's no problem.
Right, so I'm gonna run it on YouTube.
It's showing what we were just talking about with the tackle, catch up, and adjuster. Yeah.
So England versus New Zealand.
So yeah, if you look at the video, you'll see that the threes work together and they close down the space. They catch up. So the inside catch up and the tackler are generally in the breakdown. And then the adjusting defender normally calls two to fold. When a pass is made, your threes shift one player on. And I think that video shows that pretty well.
Yeah.
Maybe I must speak them through it because I don't see the video at the moment.
Yeah, it's set up quite nice. I'm just playing it for the people outside.
Structures, yeah.
And it's quite self-explanatory, where who's the tackler, who's the catch-up, who's the adjusting defender, and then Andre, this is just your drill with the players in Japan going high, going low, working in threes.
So if they look at that drill, they'll see that the inside player, he's always going for the leg chop, and then the outside guy, as soon as the ball carrier tucks. If he tucks the ball into the one arm, then the outside guy will come in and make the double hit, and they will both try and land on top of the player to slow the ball down. So yeah, that's just basic. So we do a lot of that to overemphasize defending in the threes, and also especially with the rush defense, we want the double hit. So there's a tackle fight. It slows down the second phase, and that gives your defense time to realign and reset.
Very important thing that I saw in the clip now is the catch-up defender, when he's not involved, immediately folds. And it sometimes coaches neglect it in the drill. We focus so much on the tackle and the adjuster that we forget about the catch-up defender getting the habit of folding.
Yeah, often they'll just pause and stop and wait, and we miss that as coaches often as well. Yeah.
And the other thing there is, if we get a really dominant tackle, then I want that third player to join a counter-ruck. If it's a dominant tackle, because then we can counter-ruck to win the ball back. Because to me, defense is a no-ball attack. We want to win the ball back as quickly as possible.
I was lucky enough. Sorry, Cripsy?
So we call it flood. So if it's a good offensive tackle like that,
just a slide to quickly go through the defensive breakdown. It's for me, it's a question of players. You don't want to give players too much decisions to make on the pitch, and it's simple, yes or no. If a tackler makes a tackle, Andre, like you say, he needs to assess: is it a positive hit? Is it a negative hit? Can he himself have a go with the ball? Work in the tackle fight. The adjusting defender, the jackal, or the second guy in, needs to see, does he need to help in the tackle? Yes or no? And if yes, then have a go. Otherwise, don't. And then the inside guy, needs to make a decision. Do I need to flood? Yes or no? Do I need to fold? Simple decisions for players to make to actually just to get a system going.
100%.
So here's the two scenarios. So now we've covered the tackle, and we get to ruck D. Roles and responsibilities next to the ruck. Here's I'll show the one slide, and here's the other one. And we'll quickly talk about two different principles here in play, but there's no right and no wrong as we are. Let's start off, Andre. What do you prefer next to a ruck?
Yeah, so where you've got A and B and then C, that looks pretty good. But I won't have them going in. They'll be coming up square and straight, unless...
This is just where they're looking at. This is just what they're looking at.
Okay.
That's not the lines.
Okay, but if 9 runs, if you get a running 9, then everyone from C will jam in, because what happens if 9 runs?
Yeah.
When 9 runs, generally the attacking coach wants to penetrate in this 3rd and 4th channel where C and 4 is.
Yeah.
So obviously B is covering 9. A won't follow 9. A will go up straight, because sometimes you've got that little dragon ball that the 9 can throw behind his back.
Yeah.
So A will go up straight. B will go up straight and meet the 9, but in B's channel straight up. And as the B sees 9 is running, he'll shout, we'll have a call, either jam or adjust. And if we call jam or adjust, everyone will then come in a channel, because they'll bring in the running threats. So we will close the space. And that's the only time I like guys from the outside coming in, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
One picture. Now we got another picture. Please explain to us your philosophy here.
It's pretty much the same. It's about interpretation of what you're seeing, I think.
Okay.
Like you said, you're going up in a straight line. If 9 does scoot, then, like you were saying, he's going to try and attack sort of outside C. So he's gonna try and make his way as a 9 to the outside of B to try and get him to make a decision. I think a big part of what's really helped us with our decision making around this area is that we now have everyone watching the ball.
Yeah.
So the whole defensive line is watching the ball instead of watching the men. So we've ID'd the threat first. Yeah. Then our primary focus is then on the ball to help us with our connection and with our line speed.
All right.
Yeah. A big thing from my side of this is active A.
Yeah.
He's on the left side as you look at it. And so he's given a little bit. The scrum half is set up to go to the right-hand side of the ruck. The defender can see that.
Yeah.
So if he's just given a little bit extra on side, then it allows him that straighter line to come in and assist A if there is any short play coming down that channel.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So that's a good principle.
Yeah.
And then for me, B will go around the other side, and if there's a C as well, he'll come around. So if they run anything, I think Australia did it to England in the World Cup previously, and cut them back down the short side where the English weren't pushing up and getting big again.
Yeah.
So I think that really helps us with our connection around that area too.
Yes, agreed.
For me, it's all about roles and responsibilities, and players being 100% clear. There's more than one way to do it right, but players need to be 100% clear on what is expected of them, and if you go this way or that way, it doesn't matter. It's all the same as long as players can make the decision and do it the right way, and and the result at the end of the day. We got a video clip. I'm just going to do it the other way, guys. So it's South Africa versus Wales. You see Sia and Peter Steph folding immediately on the other side. And there's another principle that comes into play. Does your A move or does your A not move? And then it goes into a little bit of just some drills that you guys do, Andre.
Yeah. So look, those are just drills. My philosophy is the game in Japan was really quick, and also in South Africa the game is very quick, so high skill levels. So we don't want A to stick and then someone running behind A to B.
Yeah.
So we actually, what we do is we teach them, you go to A, you say you A, and once the second player is coming and he says move, we call it a Bluetooth, he has to Bluetooth him, move, then that player will move to B, and the next player will come into A. So if we go back to our three defending in threes, the adjusting player, he would have come in to look for the offload, and then he will call two fold, and he will then be at C. So he'll immediately be in a good position of width to take up the rest of the defense line.
If you look at the box system here, where I think it's Frans Malherbe here, he moves and Peter Steffen and Sia fills the gap on the inside.
Inside, yeah.
It's a push-pull system. A lot of coaches don't like the A moving, because they think and it depends on what level you play, and what players you have. I'm a push-pull fan, so I'd rather give you that little bit of space on the pitch than sacrifice width on the other side and people having to run around them. But that's me.
The big thing is when you're coaching that system is that you have to also explain to the second guy coming in that he has to watch for the pick and go, if it makes sense. So his role is you coming around watching for the pick and go, and you can even shout, I've got the pick and go, I've got the pick and go. Then you take out all the guesswork around that.
Yeah. Outside shoulders. See, explain to people. So old school thought is that we line up on the inside of the man in front of us and we go up and out. That is how defense have been coached for years.
Forever. Yeah.
And then just think about lining up on the outside of your man started sort of creeping in at the high levels of the game. Just talk us through what you put down there.
I think for me, this has really helped us in several ways. A big one, which is able to sort of keep more width in our defense, so we can put that line speed on. Once you start getting a bit narrower on the inside, you tend to drop off with your line speed a little bit, because when one of the biggest things when I'm explaining it is you catch a ball from the inside, your first action is to the outside. So if you were already on the inside as a defender, you're putting yourself in trouble. Yeah, so you're already giving him advantage. You're already chasing him.
Yeah.
Now, if you line up on his outside shoulder, you can back yourself and put a hell of a lot more line speed in. Yeah, and as he's catching and he's turning, then you're also there, so you're pressuring his skill set a lot as well. Yeah, which in turn forces them backwards up the field, which is you're already winning from that point of view. So it was a big eye opener for me when we changed this. This really, really helped us with this. Gives the guys so much confidence. And then if they play out the back to a bingo runner, so somebody in the pocket, then it's easy for the guys to bounce off, and you don't get caught up with those short runners then.
Yeah, that's 100%. And also, when you get line speed, it forces them in, and your inside players can then be ready to make the jackal, because generally the players on the inside will be your loose forwards and that sort of thing. So, especially if you look at the Springboks, that's what they do really well, is to get up hard on the outside, forcing the guy back in, and then they've got their big jackal players, their forwards, ready to try and win that ball back.
It's a bit of an eye opener, and it's something that you need to. It's certainly something that I've picked on, Cripsy, since I've got to know you, and it helps, and it's a simple principle.
You just line up on a different shoulder. It's so easy, and it gives the players so much confidence.
Yeah. Right now,
Do you think youngsters could learn this sort of defense, Cripsy?
100%. Yeah. The only thing you got to worry about with that is that you first, as with always anyway, is that you need to be safe and confident with your tackling. Yeah, because sometimes they might force themselves and put their head in front of the body instead if they're a little bit, the attacker's a little bit light on their feet. Yeah, so you need to put the time in with the tackling first. Yeah,
Agreed.
to make sure they're safe before you. But definitely, I've done it at the club with the kids, and they pick it up pretty easily.
And did they enjoy it? Did they enjoy this maybe the same as a drift, or did they enjoy it more, or did it give them more confidence in a drift?
I think they enjoyed it more because I was celebrating so much when they were sending the attack 20 meters back downfield. But
I think just on that, I think there's a skill that a lot of people miss, and that's tracking.
Yeah.
It's a really important skill. There's not many skills. Obviously, the tackling is one skill in defense, and then tracking is the next one. And then I call it swimming. So if you line up and you've got those decoy runners and they play out the back, you've got to swim around the decoy runner.
Yeah.
So when lining up on the outside shoulder or outside hip, it's very good because it's easy to then swim to get to the back door. But tracking is a vital part so you go up hard, then you have small feet to just make sure you're getting your body in the correct position, especially for the younger kids. I think that's vital.
yeah.
but it's, for me, it's the individual skill of being comfortable making a hit with both shoulders, because as players favor a shoulder, so from the youngest age, players got to be really comfortable in proper tackle technique, head on the outside. You tick all the boxes that you need to tick, but if you're not comfortable defending with one of your shoulders, then it can become a problem, because you will line up so you can, if a ball's coming from the left, I'll line up on his inside because I want to tackle with my right shoulder, which is my favorite. And then opposite, if the ball is on the other side, I'll line up on his outside. So it starts where the whole system starts, is one-on-one. You need to be comfortable doing what you're doing.
Yeah. There's guys in our lot that like to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's it. So now this is the big debate. Line speed leads us to line speed. Cripsy, you got a philosophy in what you used for the national team. I'll just quickly share what my philosophy is. My philosophy in terms of line speed is, obviously worked with I haven't worked with younger players in a long time, but for me it's selling 4 different pictures to players. So your line speed is determined on what is in front of us. You mentioned watching the ball and the man. I call it BAM, ball and man, head on a swivel. There's a million things you call it. For me, it is the line speed is directly related to the picture that I have in front of us. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Yeah,
pretty much. I'm these days I'm leaning more towards like this slide that's up now. We're looking at a minimum of 4 to fire.
Yeah,
it's something that I picked up off Sean Edwards and Gatland. Is that they experimented quite a lot with it. And if you've got enough line speed, then with 4 defenders, they pretty much can't get around you, even if they got 8 attackers.
Yeah.
It's you got to be confident in this. Yeah, so if I was a club coach looking at this now, I'd be thinking that's bullshit. It's but it's something that you can play with it.
Yeah.
Start with 8 defenders, take one out, take one out, and see how far you can go before you're forced into that drift defense. And that'll give you a good idea on how many you need to be able to fire. Yeah. You could even lean towards this being your 4 on a fire, and the last 2 players reading the play and drifting if they need to. So it can be a double whammy, if you like. Yeah. So there's, like you said, there's a million and one ways to do this.
Yeah.
Tripsy,
Just about experimenting. Yeah.
we've got a question about having a shooter.
Yeah.
Would you have one of those 4 shoot, or would you want all 4 moving up together, or would you have 2 shoot? Or in general, do you employ a shooter at any stage in your defensive?
So generally, I would like them just to stay square and go up as one. Yeah. If there's going to be a shooter, then it'll be sort of a bit of a bigger picture, an outside center, so last but one man. Yeah, he's just going to get a little bit high, get in the view of the playmaker. So he would be the last but one man for me, not the last man.
And your 9, I like in certain areas of the pitch, a 9, if I coach, the 9 sort of always fills the gap here, plugs the holes outside C. And in certain, if especially if I know they're going to have a kick, or if we're really in troubles number wise, I like a 9 to like a Faf de Klerk or a Herschel Yankees, literally just going out and making a tackle. We showed a clip last week of Benji doing it.
Yeah,
but it's a coordinated attack because he does leave a hole and people need to know about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I like
it's something that I think I mentioned at the time was, if he is shooting past you, it's don't think of him as an extra defender.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's not part of that defensive line. He's doing what he's reading at that moment in time.
Yeah.
Rugby's a living, breathing animal, and you've got to make adjustments along the way. And if he sees that, it's something that, like I said, we've talked about and worked on briefly with him. We'd like to do it more. It is very effective. I think Faf does it really well.
Yeah.
Gareth Davis scored against Australia in the World Cup against the same sort of idea,
Just on that, 2 points. The one you were speaking about, the vision. I like teaching the players to use direct and indirect vision. So if the coaches can do this, if you can see, close your eyes here, you can't see next to you. But if you take one hand away, suddenly you've got a whole vision on the side. So I call it direct and indirect vision. I like my direct vision to be in front of me, but I'm watching the ball out of the corner of my eye. It helps them making decisions. So that's just one thought. And I was a bit late, but I was making a video today on the Springboks rush defense and using Faf, which is interesting. The way they use Faf is that he's actually not part of the line.
Yeah.
And he comes from deep. And when he shoots, all the guys on the outside just come in a bit tighter so that if he does miss, that there's not a hole, which is a very good idea on the shooting.
Yeah.
I call him a sniper because he comes out of nowhere and then the ball carrier is down and dead.
Oh, I think we'll use that one. I'm going to write that down now.
So there's generally 4 pictures that we can that players can see in front of them. I call this Gates defense. Cripsy, this is what you talk about, where your second last defender sort of closes. The first picture is you the side where they're going to. You are way numbers up, and we can literally get off the line as hard as we can. I like to put. That's where I also like to put that guy up there to stop the ball from going here. And they got one option, and this is playing this pod here. The second picture that players have is we got 4 defenders, 4 plus the 2 A and B. We're numbers up, or we're numbers equal, and let's just have a go at them. And then there's a clip on this. So those are the first 2 pictures. While you guys, if you want to say something on it, I'll just quickly get the video on that.
Yeah, so just on that, it's also good to put the players in training into those positions.
Yeah.
So you put a middle ruck on the field, and then you only put 3 defenders on one side or 4 defenders on one side, and on the other side you've got all. So now the players have to make a decision. Yeah. Obviously on the one side they'll do a blitz, and on the other side they'll do a shadow or jockey defense, depending on the situation. So you have to try in training put your players into those situations where they see different pictures, so that everyone can make a coordinated decision.
As for me, it's also good for the attack, because then the attack, gets the opportunity to defend against it, and also on the other side. I'm just playing the video. This is just traditional rush defense, where All Blacks actually do this quite well. The line sort of becomes a little bit of a triangle. It's Kieran Reid at the front, just going out. And it's high risk. If we go a little bit back, I picked it up this morning, Andre. If this ball actually got away, if the Aussies got it away out the back door, then they would have had the overlap on the side. But that's for me, that's the beauty of a rush defense is really, it's high risk, but the rewards is worth it.
Yeah, you see they're slightly staggered, and that staggered is just to help them make the decision. So, and you can see the number 11 jamming in and then also going out. And once the positive hit is made, you see the All Blacks flooding that breakdown. So now the Aussies are really in a lot of trouble. And then there's just a drill to get the boys really hard off the line. But it's really important. We started off narrow, and then they go into the wider ruck. So they've got to get better spacing. Because you've got to try and give the players confidence when getting off the line to make the hits. And you can see there on the second clip, the second part of the drill, how well they stopped them. If you look at this, there's back door, front door. So we've got bags coming out the back, so the defenders have to read them. And then you can also have a look. Again, they go back to a wide ruck, so they're seeing different pictures all the time in defense. They have to make decisions and get off the line. So that's something with defense that I encourage the coaches to do, is keep it simple, but get the players making as many decisions in training on different scenarios. A 2-man pod, a 3-man pod, just quick hands, all the different scenarios. They have to train that.
Yep. Because I think that's really important, because the thing with the rush defense, like you're saying, is organisation, reading body language, all that stuff's so important, because you see it sometimes when people get excited and they rush and they end up taking no one, because they're just excited to rush. And then a good attack will see those players and pick them off, because they're actually not running at anything. They're just running in a line forward. And there's no communication between the players that are moving. I've seen it a number of times, especially sort of at club level, where you see guys just rush up and you're like, what are you doing? Like, there's nothing going on there. And then they play out the back or they whatever, and then the team run around and then you're in trouble, because you've got a lot of your players high, and they're trying to chase back.
Yeah, so just one thing there. I've got two forms of communication on defense. So the first one will be for the wingers and the fullback to communicate to the 9 what from the middle rucks, especially the middle rucks, what's our call? Are we going to blitz? Are we going to shadow? Are we going to drift? So we actually have I call it a three-way defense. So they can call blitz, or they can call shadow, or they can call up and out, which is, we call it an easy or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's the first communication for the whole group of defenders to get that communication. So we call the blitz kill. It's a short word. It's a strong word. So they hear kill.
Yeah.
And then everybody knows, okay, now we're all going off. So it's actually a coordinated effort. And then the second thing is, the second communication is, if the ball is past me, say I'm defending at 2 or 3, when the ball is passed, I've got to start communicating from the inside to catch up. And that's got to be a loud communication.
Yeah.
So for clever defense attack coaches, the defense has to communicate really well, so that it's not a one-man show. Defense is a team show, and that's that's what we've got to get down to the players, that they work together, and it's not an uncoordinated shooting, but it's actually everyone working together.
That's so true. Talking about then slide is so two pictures you can get is where numbers are equal and we got too many. Then we get pictures where we little bit numbers down, and you can either be one or two down, or you can be in the next picture you can be many numbers down. So if we look at a little clip on shadow defense, it's just line speed is a lot less. This is probably the safe way to defend. And it's probably the old school way. You see England's numbers down. Scotland. It's going to go now.
It's loading.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, there it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, the one important thing there is England didn't move forward.
Yeah.
So if you numbers down, you can't move forward. Otherwise, they're around you very, very comfortably. So even here, once again, we go to a very simple drill. There's 6 attackers and 4 defenders. They're working very well to cut down the last man. It's just a replay. You can see the position they're in. So they only start moving forward once they man on, and you can actually, with 4 players, defend a huge lot of space. So it's a bit different to the rush. Just watch Scotland. Yeah, Scotland making a mistake. 1 player going forward and committing, and that caused Japan to go around. And Bob's your uncle. Japan beat Scotland in that game with just such a small error being made. But it's an early communication on the two things. It's the system. What are we playing? And the second thing is, are we? No one was communicating from the inside to that Scottish player, and that caused him to stop. And there were, if you look at the clip nicely, there were 2 players on that 1 player.
Yeah. For me, it's a golden rule. We don't go backwards when we're in our 22 because there's no time and space. So
obviously in the 22 you've got to rush and try and kill the ball.
Last section, map defense. So I'm going to show a few clips and then we can talk about map defense. And it's sort of come full circle, Cripsy, where you guys said at the beginning, you've got to look at the players that you had in your team, and I do hope this plays now. Okay, because I don't know where these videos are.
I think it will play.
I hope so. No, it's not. This one's not going. Let me just quickly do this. It's not working now. So I'll see if I can get it. So when I got to the Pumas, we had Ronaldo Botma at 8, big defensive ball carrier 8. We left on the blind. So when we wanted to counter, he was one of our first runners of the first ruck. We had a 10 that we put on the blind. We had a very mobile hooker and Frankie that we left on the blind. So I had a simple rule in map defense when we were there, is that 2 locks fold, or 2 props work towards the first ruck on the inside, and one of them needs to make a decision if I do need to fold, yes or no. My 6 and 7s had free reign on the pitch. They can go wherever they like. But we had Marnus Koeman and those guys who are really, really, good ball poachers. And my 2 centers had to sort of just take the line up and do the work. Simple philosophy on map D, but everybody knew exactly where and what they had to do. you two, your if you can just walk through what you guys do on map defense where you are, and I'll see if I can quickly get these 3 clips quickly for the people out there. Andre?
Oh, sorry.
Can I go? Or
Yes, go.
could you-
Cripsy's recovering.
Okay. So basically, if we look at a scrum on the left or a line out on the left, let's work about with the scrum first. So if the hit up is in the 10-12 channel, we will generally have 3 guys folding around, which in our case, we'll most probably put the loose forward in that first breakdown, and then we have the 2, the 8 and the other loose forward folding around, and then the 2 locks. But the first lock will make a decision, and then if the first lock will fold, the second will stay. So depending on the space, it's either 3 folding from that first breakdown or 4. If it's outside the poles, the hit up is outside the poles, so more towards the 13 channel, we'll only have 2 players folding, which will most probably be the 6 and the 8. Or, sorry, in your terms, it will be the 7 and the 8. In South African terms, it's different because we use a 6 as a 7. Sorry about that. But so generally, I try and keep it very simple. Inside the poles, we'll have 3 guys folding. Outside the poles, we'll have 2 guys folding. Inside, if the first tackle is inside the poles, one of our locks will make a decision to whether 4 guys will fold. So it's all about covering both sides of the of the field. Doina, like that one looks as though it's going to play on.
Yeah, I've got a way of playing it. Cripsy, your philosophy on map D?
Just to go touch back on your 3-fold. Yeah. So the following phases after that, have you got a set sort of folding number after that?
Yeah. So generally after the first. Only in the first phase I'll have more than 2 folding only from that first tackle. So after that, it's generally a 2-fold system.
Yeah.
So for the club coaches, that's the easiest thing. So every time the coaches will know, every time the players will know, okay, if a tackle is made, 2 guys will fold. I generally send the catch up and the tackler into the breakdown. So they will try and slow the ball down, giving time for the 2 to fold and also time for the defense to set. But only from first phase, this mapping is really important because especially for your props, they need to know where to go from set piece. And if they know where to go, it makes their life so much easier. So what we do is, even if we've got 2 teams, both teams are defending teams, we'll put out 3 cones in the middle of the field, 1 inside the poles, 1 in the middle, and 1 outside the poles. And the different colored cones, it's very easy, different colored cones. Coach will blow the whistle. If it's a line out, they'll go up. If it's a scrum, they'll go onto the knee. And then the coach will call a color. As soon as he calls a color, the 2 players in that channel will make the tackle and the other guys will fold around, both teams on the same time. So it's basically a very like a warm-up drill. And then they'll blow the whistle, come back to the same position, blow the whistle up, come down, call the color, they'll go. And it's repetition. All the players know exactly where to go from first and second or first phase. And it makes your D so much easier because now in a game you don't have everyone running to the ruck because that's a big problem, especially at schoolboy level in South Africa. Everyone wants to run to the ball. I don't know whether it's like a magnet or a chick
across the world.
Something, but they want to all go to the ball. So that just gives the players the sense, okay, after the set piece, after my job in the line out, I'm not just going towards the ball. I've got a job, and it gives a lot of width to your defense.
Yeah. How strict are you then if they overfold an extra number or or a one less number, but the outcome is still a positive one. Would you get into them for that overfold or underfold?
Look, obviously, the longer you go, the more you do it. Say you do that drill twice a week for 5 minutes. By the second week, they should be knowing where to go, and they should be starting to make less and less errors.
Yeah.
Because
but my question is, if they're not making errors. So if you got a two-fold off your first phase, and they see extra forwards from the attack coming around the corner, and they end up folding 3 or 4.
Look, So what we do, what Heinz said earlier, was the push-pull system. So So that's where, if I've got my center split after that first phase, now you've got the 12 and the 13 second last defender. They can then communicate, because sometimes 2's folded, but they're going same side, so we need an extra player.
Yeah.
Then that 13 will call one more, and they'll bring one more around, and he'll just, so that your active A will just shift into other A, and everyone will just shift in, so nobody's running past each other's, behind each other's backs. Because to me, that's a really good principle. Just moving, you understand that,
Mapping from a scrum. Mapping from a scrum is the easiest one to do. If you
100%.
Lineouts become a bit tricky, because you got a 4-man lineout, a 5-man lineout, a 6, a 7-man lineout, and then the folding principles change. But it's if you present it neatly to the players, and players are 100% sure where certain targets are. It's all about getting 13 guys on their feet over a certain amount of space. Doesn't matter. I can have, if the other team gets to the 15, they can fold their whole team. I only probably need 3 guys to cover that space. I want to.
I was more thinking about. I used to be of a mindset of, if I told them that I wanted a 2-fold, then 1-fold, for example, then they put 3-fold, but the outcome was still a positive one. In the video analysis, I would still pick up on the wrong numbers folding.
You got to. It's like attack. If you, for me, it's like if a guy doesn't do his job in attack, why? The same with defense. He's still got to do his job on D.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but if the outcome is still positive and we've still knocked them back, for example. And turned the ball over or gone 10 extra phases without conceding any meters or a score, would you still pick up on it in your analysis session?
Yeah.
Look, you have to show him, but you've also got to. The game is so dynamic that you can't be too much to the point. If that makes sense. Because you've got to allow them to also make decisions. But as long as at training you're putting him in the position, all the right positions all the time. So just one thing, a short story on the mapping. I was coaching at a school, and one of our props was really struggling in defense, and the head coach to ask me to start doing the defense, and I just brought in one thing, mapping, and after doing mapping twice, the boy played on the Saturday, and I thought, geez, he was never, because he was always in the wrong position, tackling the wrong area. And that Saturday, he defended like a beaut. And we'd done 2 mapping sessions. And I asked him afterwards, listen, why did you defend so well today? And he said to me, Coach, it's the first time I knew where to be on the field. And so a lot of the times you've got to ask the players questions. Why did you do that? To get their perspective, because sometimes they don't understand your learning or your teaching. And the only way to understand what the player is thinking is actually to ask him questions.
Yeah. So just last 3 clips, finish the episode, just give you a bit of a background. So we had an 8 who we wanted to leave on the blind because we wanted to force teams to kick it back. So we actually put our 7 and our 6 on the side of the position of 8 and on the side of the scrum. Remember, our philosophy was 2 locks fold, 2 props work towards the inside. Hooker stays blind as well because we had Frankie was a nice mobile hooker. And it actually, if you look at the clip, you just look at it from the scrum, it makes it so easy. Hooker stays, 2 props in, 2 locks fold, and we're immediately in a position to play. It just makes life so much easier. If we go to the next clip, same thing. So DJ is quite a mobile prop for a guy that's played almost 200 Currie Cup games in his life. And you'll see roles and responsibilities, midfield target. There comes the flanker. There's the prop on the inside. And actually, DJ can get off the line. We use line speed. And it actually puts us immediately in a position to sort of fight again, you know. We immediately, you see, push, pull. Lambert pushes. Get off the line again. 2-fold policy. And we ended up getting the ball back. That's a win for us. Last one, same here with the scrum. A lot of things not right, but once again, you'll see if I can stop it here. There's our 8, Otto. He's going to stay blind. There's a flanker here. He should be scrumming, and then we'll literally go 2 locks fold, 2 props come. If it's a close target, and you'll see it here. If I can stop it. There's 1 lock coming. There's the other lock coming. There's 8. He's going to work blind with the wing. There's a hooker. He's going to stay. There's my 2 props. They're going to fill the area here. And we ended up, I want to show you what this does, is that if you get a push-pull and you get, I want to stop it at a specific picture. And you'll see we always had to go with the ball. And I want to stop. Crap. I want to give you this picture here, is that
Right at the end.
if you look at this picture here, 1 pink line down here, even, you know, it's 1 pink line, everybody ready to rock and roll, and everybody knows exactly what to do. Now 3s, 2-fold policy, you can see the communication. There's the adjusting defender coming in, Andre. You know, so from a mapping point of view, this is what makes life easy. If you do this,
You're just Hein. That's really the great defense. One thing from the lineout that the coaches must understand is the pod that's going up in the air. They've got to get back into action really quickly. So that's why when I do the mapping, I've got 2 pods jumping. So they're going up on the first whistle. I normally have a whistle. I'll blow the whistle. The pod's got to go up 2 pods. So you've got 6 players in the air. And then on the second whistle, that pod comes down and I call a color. So now they have to return to action, which is a really important thing in rugby, is you've got to return to action with speed.
Yeah.
So it's got to be done quickly. And you have to train that. Otherwise, in a game, they're lifting, then they're putting the guy down, then they're really slow to get into position. So that's got to happen quickly. You've got to win the race. We call it winning the race. Winning the race to get into position early, set early. And if you set early, you can then put pressure onto the attack.
And players will always go, yeah, coach, but then we have tighties in the mid. Let's say they take it wide. And then it's a simple philosophy that if they do take it wide, they're not going to have forward securing the ruck on the outside. They're going to have back securing the ruck on the outside. So you're going to have forwards running at forwards in midfield, which is then for me, it's okay. I've got a prop tackling a prop, or a lock tackling a lock. And if it's a short target, if let's say 12 is in there will be maybe sometimes a back, depends on what you see in front of you. So you will always have, if your mapping is correct, a forward on a forward and a back on a back, if you do it correctly and then get into your general system, if it makes sense.
So were you answering Harry's question there, Hein?
Emma, I haven't seen the question. Sorry.
He refers to front row and midfield if they bring it back,
Okay.
or would they work inside gradually?
In any system, I would like them to work inside gradually. If there's time, if Scripty's tackle fights 5 seconds, we do have a bit of time to shuffle the deck.
Yeah. On that point, the interesting one, the All Blacks finally won in Cardiff. Their defensive line never changed positions.
Yeah.
They were so good and so confident in that game.
Yeah.
We saw overhead video of it, and there wasn't any switching of positions trying to hide your front rows or anything like that. That's how good they were at that time.
That is if you're working in your threes, like you guys said earlier. If the work in threes is proper, it builds confidence. Then I'm in the middle. I'm a prop. I'm not really scared of missing a tackle because I know I've got 2 guys next to me that will cover me.
Yeah, and the thing is, you must understand that the All Black props are athletes now.
Oh yeah.
The top level, you don't have the round little prop that's just for the love of the game and trying to scrum the guy to pieces. So a lot of teams, even at Super Rugby level, aren't switching anymore, but they do still have they call it a defense shape, where your props are in the middle, a lock on either side, a flanker on either side, 2 flankers 2 loose forwards on the one side, the hooker and the 8 on the other side, and then the centers and the wingers. So that's where the modern game is going to. Obviously, at a lower level, it's a bit different because your prop is slow. You want him to still maybe switch and work in, but a lot of it is you've got to really try and coordinate your boys. If you coach well, you don't have to switch the players anymore. If they understand how to do a shadow, if they understand how to do a up and a drift, if that is your system, if they understand to do a blitz, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, coaches. You got through a lot tonight. It was a good conversation, and I'm sure we'll recap and do some more defense webinars in the coming weeks, just to go maybe a bit more in detail on some of these points, because you covered a hell of a lot of information, which is great. But yeah, it'd be good to sort of go a bit deeper on certain topics, and we'll talk about which topics that they can be from you guys, and then move forward. But thanks for tonight. It's been great. Learned a lot. Hopefully the people at home have learned a little bit as well. Hein, you usually finish us off with the licensee system and
then just from my side as well, Cripsy and Andre, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your expertise. I'm one of those guys. It's probably just me and Cripsy in the whole of the Netherlands that get really, really excited and get the juices flowing when you talk about defense. To the coaches out there, if you haven't joined yet, please get your license. Send an email to Joanne at licensi at rugby.nl, or you can go to the webpage rugby.nl underneath the uploading tab. You go there. If you do get everything done and you do get registered, Joanne will sort you out. You get access to the Coach Now platform, where we are then going to upload all these presentations for you. And if you wanna have a look back again, they are also available on YouTube. Zane, you want to tell the guys what's up on Thursday night?
Just before we do that, Jacques has a question for you guys. Before we go, we've got one more. What are your thoughts on the double sweeper, left and right, used by Ireland earlier this year? And do you think teams will need to drop another player back once the new 50-22 kicking laws come in?
You see,
Andre, go.
the whole thing with the double sweepers that Ireland use and South Africa use. South Africa used 10 and 15. Ireland was using 9 and 15. So the whole thing with that is that the one player covers on the 1 15-yard line and the other player on the other 15-yard line. If he goes in to cover the last man, obviously the one guy will come around sweeping. So I wouldn't drop another guy with the 50 or the 80-20 rule coming in, because those two players, they should be able to catch any ball, whether it's kicked into the middle or kicked onto the side. I mean, if they kick it to the side, he's got to run 10 meters and catch it. If they kick it in the middle, they've got to run 15 to 20 meters at most. So the big thing is to put it in a game, like get a training game for understanding. I've got quite a nice training game for understanding, which I play with those two guys back. The rest are on the front line, and the team must kick the ball after 2 phases. And that trains the players to cover the space. If they hit grass, they get 3 points. So you've got to think creative with that sort of thing. I hope that answers Jock's question. But I wouldn't change the 2 sweepers back to send one more back. It's not necessary.
Yeah, I think from an attack point of view, you can manipulate where they are, because, like you're saying, you've only got 35 meters to cover per player. Yeah, in a perfect picture.
Yes.
You can manipulate that picture, to make him move a little bit more to the right or left or whatever. Then you can start looking at kicking in grass. Yeah, and teams are starting to do that as well pretty successfully, just by hammering it down the middle of the field. Yeah, and then putting big line speed on like that.
Just one thing on that is, I get what you're saying, but you can still use your wingers to cover that space.
Yeah.
If your 15 is making that tackle and your 10 is across, your far side winger will still then come a bit on a wings on strings.
Yeah.
So then they the 2 guys back. As soon as the 15 gets back and comes into position, then the other winger goes up. So you can still manipulate your backfield with the wingers, but the wingers will sit a lot higher than they used to sit.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, guys. So on Thursday we're looking at system attack, so a structured attack like a 1-3-1, 2-4-2 against sort of a family system, the French play system. So we've got coaches that are going to discuss the strengths and weaknesses of those 2 styles, and what they like to coach and why they like to coach the different things in their coaching. So it should be a good discussion.
And we'll be in Dutch, eh?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Yeah, we'll understand it all. Thanks, guys. That's it for tonight. I'm going to stop this now.